Hi, welcome to another lesson. Today I'd like to discuss how to read tablature for dummies. Now, if you don't know how to read tablature, it's okay. If you're new to it, if you're new to looking at tablature and trying to figure out what it is, that's alright. I get this question all the time from new students who are trying to decipher either tablature they see online or something that I may give them. You know, what are the numbers? What are the lines for? How do I read this? Or sometimes they don't even ask me any questions and they try to do it themselves and they wind up actually reading it upside down or reading it in a disjointed way that doesn't really get the point across. So tablature, let's get it straight. Tablature is not cheating. Tablature has been around for centuries. It's one of the ways that lute players used to write down music, hundreds of years ago. So tablature is another way of notation for stringed instruments. And they took advantage of what the strings are, what the frets are. Instead of necessarily putting down notes, they would put down fret numbers and they would align that on the line where that represents what string that is. So what I tell all my students is this: if you want to keep tablature straight and figure out exactly what it means, you really need to change your perspective of how you're looking at the paper. It's a little bit of processing. A lot of people do better with visual charts and graphs that actually have a diagram of the fretboard and show you on their dots of where the notes are. But if you compile all those dots onto one of those charts, it doesn't give you the order in which to read them unless it's notated on there, note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So tablature is good for keeping the flow consistent. So now what do I mean by perspective? Perspective is essentially looking at that piece of paper and not trying to figure out that, okay, I have to process that. When I look at this, a flat piece of paper, it's really like I'm looking down at my guitar, like this. That's the way I look at it. It's the best way I try to explain it. If you look at tablature as if I'm looking down at my instrument, and the strings are numbered low to high via 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, those are my strings, and that's the order in which they go. They go low to high this way. A lot of students will flip it backwards and go low to high like this because that's what we want to do. We want to read things the way that we're used to reading a lot of things. So you can also look at it like this. If you take your guitar and flip it like this, low to high, okay, then you have your fret numbers from left to right, and then that can kind of help with the perspective aspect of it, and then trying to process what tablature means. So then after you get better at doing that, when you look down at the fretboard, you can say to yourself, okay, this is on the paper, low to high, so I know that this is just represented just like, if I'm down here at it says, 3 on that first line on the bottom, I know that that's my 6th string, 3rd fret. And then you just follow the process up from there. Reading chords too sometimes is a lot of mental processing because you got to look at all those numbers and all those strings at one particular time. And after a while, you'll look at them as being more of a symbol. You'll start seeing, the fret numbers changing, and you just kind of read it like you would read music. So, best way to get across to my students anyway is that shift in perspective. Look at tablature as if you're looking down at your guitar from low to high, and then from left to right. Take your time with it. Don't get frustrated, and eventually, at some point, it'll get easier to process. So, I hope this Tablature for Dummies video has helped you out. And stay true, stay on fire.